Every single year, it seems like the same debate kicks off. Is there a war on Christmas? Well, what if I told you this whole fight, it isn't new at all? Turns out, it's actually a 400-year-old tradition.
So let's start with something that probably looks pretty familiar. You know the type of headline I'm talking about, right? The kind that shouts about how the real spirit of Christmas is under attack.
Okay, so this one's from a 2006 campaign by the British newspaper The Sun. They were pointing to stuff like a city rebranding its holiday celebration as Winter Winter, and saw this as proof that these old, beloved Christmas customs were being deliberately erased.
But here's the big question. Is this feeling, this outrage that Christmas is being threatened, that we're losing something precious, is it really a modern thing? Is this just a 21st century panic about political correctness? Well, the answer is not even close. The truth is, this whole argument about our real Christmas being lost, this idea that the holiday just isn't what it used to be, you can trace that exact complaint all the way back to the 17th century.
So that begs the question, right? What was this so-called lost Christmas even like? Before the first big crackdown, what exactly were people so desperate to hold on to? First off, you gotta forget everything you picture about a quiet family Christmas around a tree. This was, well, it was the opposite. We're talking about a loud, public 12-day party. A total carnival, really, where everything was turned upside down. The rich had to throw open their doors for the poor. Society's rules just went out the window.
But as you can probably guess, not everyone was a fan of all this chaos, all the feasting and drinking. A group of pretty serious radical Protestants, you've definitely heard of them, the Puritans, they looked at all this and saw something, well, something sinful, deeply, deeply immoral. And that disapproval, it wasn't just going to stay as grumbling. It was about to become an actual outright ban. You could call it the original war on Christmas, and it was led by a parliament that was dead set on cleaning up public morals. See, for the Puritans, Christmas just wasn't holy at all. Their argument was pretty straightforward. First, you can't find it anywhere in the Bible. Second, it was just a mashup of old pagan winter festivals and what they saw as popish Catholic traditions. They thought it just encouraged people to party instead of, soberly reflecting on their faith. And look, this didn't happen overnight. The Puritan-controlled parliament was very methodical about it. They took the holiday apart piece by piece. In 1644, boom, December 25th is now a day of fasting, not feasting. A year later, it's just gone from the official church calendar. And then, by 1647, an act of parliament officially abolished it. Gone. And this wasn't just an English thing either. The Puritans who came to America brought the ban with them. In 1659, over in Boston, they started slapping a 5-shilling fine on anyone caught celebrating. Now, 5 shillings might not sound like much, but for a regular worker back then, that was a huge amount of money. All for what? For having a nice meal? Or just not going to work? So how did the public take it? Well, they absolutely hated it. This was seen as a massive government overreach, and it led to actual pro-Christmas riots. I mean, in a city like Canterbury, protesters were demanding a Christmas service, and they ended up holding the entire town for weeks. People were serious about this. But here's where things get really interesting. The ban had this completely unintended side effect. Because in their fight against the Puritans, their political opponents, the Royalists came up with a brilliant piece of propaganda. They created a new hero, a figure who would become the face of the holiday forever.
This guy, Old Father Christmas, you've got to understand, he wasn't the magical sleigh-riding gift giver we think of. Not at all. He was basically a political mascot. He was a symbol for the Royalist side during the English Civil War, a way to stick it to the Puritans.
He was nostalgia in human form, a living symbol of the good old days. They drew him as this big, jolly old guy with holly in his hair, and he stood for everything the Puritans hated: feasting, good cheer, tradition, the whole shebang. Okay, so fast forward a bit, the monarchy gets restored in 1660, and Christmas is officially back on. But that old, wild, rowdy version, it kind of started to fade away. And eventually, it got a massive Victorian-era makeover, which is how we got the Christmas we'd pretty much recognize today. So what happened was, during the Victorian era, you had two figures. There was the old English Father Christmas, the symbol of adult partying, and then you had this growing American myth of Santa Claus. And over time, the two of them just merged. They blended together to create this totally new character who was all about the kids. This was a huge transformation, and writers like Charles Dickens had a massive influence on it. The entire focus of the holiday shifted. It went from being this big public party in the town square to a quiet, private celebration in the home. It became all about family, children, and, being a good person.
So let's bring it all back. What's the real legacy of that Puritan ban from 400 years ago? How did it end up shaping the Christmas we have now and the one we still argue about every single year? Well, it turns out trying to get rid of Christmas had some really lasting and kind of ironic consequences. It's a really complex legacy when you think about it. The ban didn't kill Christmas. In a weird way, it helped create Father Christmas. It's the reason our celebrations moved from the street into our living rooms. But maybe the biggest thing it did was create this powerful, lasting feeling, this nostalgia for a lost golden age of Christmas, the idea that the real Christmas is always in danger of slipping away.
So the next time you hear someone complaining that there's a war on Christmas, you'll know what's really going on. They're not starting some new culture war. They're actually taking part in a very, very old tradition. A 400-year-old custom, in fact, of worrying that the Christmas we have right now just isn't as real as the one we think we've lost.